I'm remembering the days before I went away, way back in the hills of old Vermont. And the orchard on the hill, I think I see it still, way back in the hills of old Vermont. For tonight I long to be where the catamount run free and the rattlesnake can lie out in the sun. Near the voices of balloons when the apple blossoms bloom, way back in the hills of old Vermont. There used to be a barn near the old fishing pond, way back in the hills of old Vermont. So many fields of hay now gone with yesterday, way back in the hills of old Vermont. Oh, tonight I long to be where the catamount run free and the rattlesnake can lie out in the sun. Near the voices of the loon when the apple blossoms bloom, way back in the hills of old Vermont. Well, everything has changed, nothing stays the same, way back in the hills of old Vermont. Like the old brown panther's roar, you won't hear that no more, way back in the hills of old Vermont. Oh, tonight I long to be where the catamount run free and the rattlesnake can lie out in the sun. Near the voices of the loon when the apple blossoms bloom, way back in the hills of old Vermont. But when the rains came down and flooded many towns, way back in the hills of old Vermont, all the neighbors lent a hand for the loving of the land, way back in the hills of old Vermont. For tonight I long to be where the catamount run free and the rattlesnake can lie out in the sun. Near the voices of the loon when the apple blossoms bloom, way back in the hills of old Vermont. Hi, this is Rik Palieri in the hills of old Vermont, and welcome you to another show of songs and stories for hard-hitting times. And boy, we've got hard-hitting times these days, I'll tell you. Now, the last time that we were together was right before New Year's, and we were talking a little bit about the crazy stuff that's going on in Vermont here. Because that's the only place that I can really talk about is Vermont, because that's that's what I know. And this coronavirus is oh my gosh, it is getting more and more challenging all the time. We had another big high count again of new cases and in schools, and kids not going to school, and some kids going to school, and I don't know. But the thing is, at this point, if you're not vaccinated, you're walking on some pretty rough ground. Even if you are vaccinated, you got to be careful. That's what I mean. It's not that we're home free, though I'd like it to be that way. We're trying to do the best we can to minimize the effects of gathering. I mean, the thing that I love and I think that you love the most is just getting together with friends, right? And that's been tricky. It's been tricky. We're doing the best we can, folks. Mariana's got these, air freshener things, with these special HEPA filters in it, and we got those running. If somebody comes by and open up windows and do the right thing. We're excited that my friend Rick Nestler is coming up. He's going to be here on Thursday. And so on Thursday, we're going to start rehearsing because we have a virtual concert. It was supposed to be a live concert. It was supposed to be a live concert for the Walkabout Coffee House, the Walkabout Clearwater Coffee House. And unfortunately, because of this COVID thing, it got moved to a virtual thing. And I've got all kinds of information on my usual web page there on Facebook that tells you, how to get the tickets and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's one of those things where, you go there, you pay what you can, suggested donation thing. So you should check it out, the Walkabout Coffee House and the Ricks, R-I-X. And we'll be playing a lot of songs from the Clearwater, the album that we did as a tribute to both the Pete Seeger and the Clearwater, steering Pete's course, maritime songs from the Seeger song bag. And so that's going to be fun. We're going to work on a lot of those songs. The thing is, like a lot of us, haven't been able to get together for a while now. And it's been, we were together in Maine. That was the last time. That was back in the summer. But before that, when we put out the album, it was right before this pandemic kind of went crazy. And so we didn't get a chance to do many shows. We got to do the Woody Guthrie Festival, and we got to do the Clearwater Revival, and a few other great shows over at the Eighth Step Coffee House. But unfortunately, we didn't get to do a whole lot of things. And so we're looking forward to have this chance to sing some of these songs and sing some of the other songs that we both like, traveling songs and hobo songs and train songs. And so I think that, if you like those kinds of things, you're probably going to like this concert. So you should check it out. Well, I hope you folks are doing well. It's, once again, a good friend, Rick Lewis from the East Brunswick, New Jersey music scene in our high school, passed away just a few days ago. And once again, feeling that sadness of another person who slipped away. And I know a lot of people are talking about Rick, and I got to know him more when he started working with the Exit band, my old friends from Exit, and he was a fun kind of guy. I call him like a jovial fellow, and he used to write to me, and he was always excited about when the band was getting together, and they were playing a lot of cover songs from the Renaissance of rock and roll, the Beatles and the Who and all of that kind of stuff. And the last time I heard from him was back in October, and he was once again being excited, and I just found out that he just slipped away, and I feel kind of sad. So I'm remembering you, Rick Lewis, today as we gather here in this kind of sacred space. I talked a little bit about that on Facebook too, about this the magic circle, and I didn't really go into it that much, but I was in Glasgow, Scotland, and there was a puppeteer named John who had this shop, and I used to go and visit with him on King Street, and he's the one who told me about the magic circle. And the way that he described it, he said back in the early kind of days of people doing theater, sometimes they wouldn't have a venue to play in, so they'd have to create their own magic space, and they would draw a big circle on the ground to mark out where the stage perimeter is, And he had all kinds of directions about it. I wrote it all down, but I won't bore you with it because it gets very mathematical about, how the circle is divided into sevens, and that if you enter from the right side, that's where the lightness is. And if you enter from the left side, that's where the darkness is. And so it really depends on how you enter the circle and give your energy out. And I was thinking about that in some ways, that the live streaming that a lot of us musicians have had to do now is kind of like we created our own magic circle. We created a time that we would gather together with friends. Sometimes, some people do it every day. Some people do it once a week. It really depends on what you want to do. I've been doing this now probably since the pandemic kind of broke out, because Jim Lockridge from the Radiator radio station in Burlington asked me to do it to cheer up people during these hard times. And that's why we call it, songs and stories for hard-hitting times. And I try to kind of tell some stories and sing some songs. And so that's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to pick up another guitar and do a song that I don't usually do too often. Let's see if I can remember it. I got words here just in case, because I'm getting old, folks. Let's see, grab this here. Oh, okay. Now, this song I wrote many years ago when I was out on the road. I was out there. I'd leave sometime in September. And then I'd be on the road doing these school shows every day. And at that time I was living out of my Volkswagen van with my first Polish sheepdog, Koza. And we traveled all to every state in the lower 48, singing songs, doing what I do. But, I'd get out on the road and I knew that I wouldn't be able to come back home. I wouldn't be able to come back home until December for 2 weeks. Then I'd go back out on the road again. And then I wouldn't come back again until the end of May, sometimes the beginning of June. So I had a lot of time to think out on the road, because you do the gig, the gig is the icing on the cake, but you have all that time to deal with, lots of time. And you sit in truck stops. And I wrote this song when I was in a truck stop. And I was in South Dakota, as I recall, at this truck stop. Odalo, odalo, odalo. The road is my mistress, siren of darkness, cloaked in black midnight. She bids me from home. In arms ever winding, I'm lost in her magic, destined to follow wherever she roams. Goodbye, New England. I'm off on your highway, past green, fertile farmlands and fat Holstein cows. Threading my way down the banks of the Hudson, I see New York City. I'm on the road now. The road is my mistress, siren of darkness, cloaked in black midnight, she bids me from home. In arms ever winding, I'm lost in her magic, destined to follow wherever she roams. When I'm on the road, leave my life behind, I seem to spend my time trying to go home. But when I return, my thoughts drift and yearn for an open highway and the song of the road. Odorloo, 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 Odorloo. Another lost week in the hills of the Badlands. I'm slipping in quicksand, my pockets threadbare. The diesels are humming while my guitar's strumming a song of the road, wishing you were here. The road is my mistress, siren of darkness, cloaked in black midnight, she bids me from home. In arms ever winding, I'm lost in her magic, destined to follow wherever she roams. Through rusty red canyons, from Casper to Cody, on snake-twisted rivers to Idaho Falls. Just one more old night in this lonely old truck stop. I'm back in this rig up and I'm going home. Odorloo, 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 Odorloo. I don't know, if you ever been in that situation, just been out on the road for so long, and the thing that you're thinking about the most is you just wish that you could go home. And then, because you're a musician and your road is partly out on the road, you also have to go back out on the road to make a living. So I think that's one of the things about this time that's been really difficult, is that you can't go back out on the road like you used to, and you don't even know when you'll be able to go back out on the road. And so a lot of my memories, I have these memories where I'm sitting around and I'll just see a road. I'll just see the road somewhere. Could be a roundabout over in England, or could be, just a mountain out in Alice Springs in Australia. All these visions of places that I've been throughout my life, they come back and they just flash by. There's like never people there. It's just a road. And so, that's been my life for such a long time. And now that I've been home, the only road that I see is my driveway. No, that's not true. I get out a little bit, but sometimes I feel that way, and I wonder, I say, Rick, are you ever going to get a chance to really go back out on the road and do your thing? And that's why, when Rick and I got this gig for the Walkabout Coffee House, I was really excited, to go to New York and get out on the road, but that ain't going to happen. That ain't gonna happen this time. So, we're thinking about, you notice that in that song there, I had this kind of weird yodel thing happening there. And I think I've sang this song, I mean, after 2 years, over 2 years of doing this thing and doing so many live streams, I think I've sang every song that I probably know. And I hope that you do enjoy it. Um, so this has a story to it. I was out on the road, and once again, I was this time I was in well, I was in North Dakota, and I was up in North Dakota, and I went over to after once in a while when you did these school shows, the teacher would bring you home to meet the family, and you could sing for your supper, and that was always a fun thing to do because you got to meet a lot of different people and sing some more songs, different songs than you were doing in your program. And so I was out there, and I was in traveling, in my van, the blue and white Volkswagen van. If you want to get pulled over by the police, drive a blue and white Volkswagen van. You're sure to get pulled over at least every time that you get out on the highway. So I was I was at the beginning of the tour, and I had the sleeping bag, and that went down to 30 below, and I figured that should do me well. This is the first time that I was doing a tour in North Dakota. It was for the North Dakota assemblies, as I recall. And so, I pulled the van over and into this ranch. It was a ranch. I was invited over to this family. It was ranchers, and they were buffalo ranchers. And we're sitting around and we're talking a little bit. And the rancher, he says to me, he goes, "Well, you out here doing these school programs, you're probably staying at some pretty nice hotels." And I said, "No, I'm not staying in hotels. I'm sleeping in my van, the blue and white van over there." He says, "You're sleeping in the van?" He goes, "This is North Dakota. People freeze to death in North Dakota." And he said, "You got heat in that van?" I said, "Well, it's a Volkswagen. I've got some heat." And he goes, "Wait a minute." He goes into the back room, and he comes out, and he has a half of a buffalo hide with all the hair on it. And he said, "The Native Americans have slept many a winter in their teepee with one of these, and I'm going to give this to you so you don't freeze to death." So I had that buffalo robe, and I'd curl up in my sleeping bag. At first, I'd wrap myself around the buffalo, and then I'd crawl into my sleeping bag. Of course, Koza, the dog, she would be panting, and there would be all kinds of frost inside my little van there. And we were doing a show. We did a lot of Native American reservations. That's how I learned a little bit about playing flutes and stuff, because I was on so many reservations. And I was out there in South Dakota and did this show. And the head teacher said, "Well, you might not make it to your next show." I said, "Well, I got to make it to my next show. I have a show in the morning. I got to get there." He said, "Well," he goes, "there's a really bad storm coming, and you might not make it." And I said, "Well," I said, "I think I have to try because with this assembly program, you have to get to the gig no matter what." That was the deal. And he said, "Well, I'm warning you now. This is really bad." I said, "Well, I live in Vermont. I'm used to some snow. I think I'll be okay." He goes, "This is North Dakota. This is not Vermont." He said, "Are you sure you don't want to stay here the night and try to get up early and go?" I said, "No, I have a long way to go. I better start going." So I said goodbye. So we started driving down the road, and the snow is falling. And, it's falling pretty heavy. But I'm doing okay. Driving along. And then, way out in the distance, I see this big white ball, a swirling ball. It was coming at me like this. Now, I never saw anything quite like this before. This is a white ball. It swirls at me, and then poof, it hits. And this is the worst storm that I've ever tried to drive through. I mean, it was so bad. The heater didn't do any good because the ice was freezing on there and the windshield wipers weren't working, and I was in a bad shape. And there were policemen out on the road, and the policeman saw me, and he directed my van to pull over. There was a 7-Eleven store. He said, "Yeah, well, you know," he goes, "You're not gonna make it tonight." He goes, "You gotta go get a hotel." I said, "No, I'm gonna sleep in the van." He goes, "Listen, if you sleep in that van, I'm going to have to pull out your dead body in the morning. Now, I don't want to do that. I suggest that you get a hotel. There's one right over there. I'm going to go and make sure that you can get a room for the night. It won't cost you much. Don't worry about it." So I went over and went inside. Man, it was a bad storm. He was right. I probably wouldn't have made it. You know, the snow was falling, and it was howling. It was howling. I mean, if you're in North Dakota, you know what I'm talking about. That howling of the wind is just incredible. So I was there in this hotel, and Koza, my dog's in there, and she was petrified to go outside because of that howling sound. And so, you know, I was sitting there. I pulled out my banjo, and I decided, well, you know, I'm a folk singer. I think I'll write a song about it. Freezing in North Dakota, feel as cold as an ice cream soda. Teeth ratting like an old piano, though the wind blows through my ears. Not too far from Minnesota, where a polar bear could catch pneumonia. Buffalo dream of Arizona, 'cause it sure gets cold around here. Odelay, yodelo, odelay. Well, the land is cold, but the people are warm. Friendliest folks ever was born. Tip their hat and blow the horn as they go driving by. They'll fix you some coffee to take you in. Tell you a story that'll make you grin about Old Man Winter and how life's been underneath the prairie skies. I'm freezing in North Dakota. Feel as cold as an ice cream soda. Teeth are ratting like an old canola when the wind blows through my eyes. Not too far from Minnesota, where a polar bear could catch pneumonia. Buffalo dream of Arizona. These are the words he said. Odelay, yodelo, odelo. Odelay, yodelo, adelay, yodelo, odelay, yodelo, yodelo, adelay, yodelo, odelay, yodelo, odelay, yodelo, yodelo, adelay, yodelo, adelay, yodelo, odelay, yodelo, odelay, yodelo, yodelo, yodelo. Adelay, yodelo, 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 adelay, yodelo, odelay, yodelo, odelay, yodelo, yodelo, adelay, yodelo, adelay, yodelo, odelay, yodelo, odelay, yodelo, yodelo, yodelo. Well, we had some fun today, just fooling around I hope that you're going to have a good week. You know, it's going to be tricky. You know, we're going to have to work hard, you know, to try and keep safe. I hope you all tune in on Saturday at the Walkabout Coffee House and listen to the Ricks as we sing some songs and have some more fun and tell some stories. Well, until next week, this is your friend Rik Palieri, wishing you a safe and a very happy week. Until next week, I'll see you again. Okay, bye bye. Oh, wait a minute. For anybody from Kokomo's Cafe. All right. Good, Truffles. Thanks for reminding me. All right. All right. Bye-bye.